So it's been 1 year with this thing, the good old LC 500. It's the 1 year anniversary, so let's talk about it. How do I feel about it? What's the maintenance like? What's the cost going to be like in the future moving forward? What are some of the parts costs on this vehicle? I'm going to try and break down those things in this video, and obviously kind of how I felt about this vehicle, and also since I review cars, how do I kind of like this vehicle compared to the other vehicles I've tried. Let's go ahead, let's get into it. So, was it worth putting my financial future in jeopardy to lease this thing? Yeah, it was. It was worth it. I will say that the monthly payment is definitely a mortgage, but is it worth it? I think it was, and it continues to be, I think, my most favorite car I've driven as a street car thus far. Most importantly, I want to jump into the kind of maintenance things, because in my 6-month review that I did on it, it was kind of just basically like a secondary review. So I kind of want to go through and break down a few other cost-based things here in this video, because I've already done like 10 or 15 videos jacking off to this car, so you can go watch my LC 500 playlist for that. And let's get started. So the maintenance with this vehicle. Obviously, it's only been 1 year with the vehicle. How many miles do I have? I only have like 4,100 miles with the vehicle. Some of you might think, well, that's a lot for a vehicle like this, or some of you are probably like, I'm not even driving this thing at all. And the truth of the matter is, I don't drive a lot, okay? But I get press cars to review, obviously. So I'm going to be driving those press cars around. If I didn't have press cars, I'd probably have like, 7,000 or 8,000 miles on it. But I don't. I only have 4,100 miles. But mileage isn't what matters when it comes to maintenance on this vehicle. Lexus is going to have you do the maintenance on this car every 6 months anyway. Every 5,000 miles, you're going to be changing the oil on this vehicle. So I already did the first oil change 6 months ago, okay? And I did my second oil change now. So I did the 10,000 mile service already on this vehicle because it's been 1 year, right? Now, what does that service entail? Literally, it was just another oil change, but they obviously they just go through and they inspect these things, right? Like, the tires and all the other things, right? They just do their typical inspections. And really, that's really it when it comes to maintaining this car. There's only a few places where you're going to be spending some money, but for the most part, it's every 5,000 miles you change out the oil and you replace the little key battery, the battery on the car. You do the air filters on the car and the engine oil filters, right? The intake, and that's about it. Just filters, oil, and that's it. And then every 30,000 miles is when they're gonna be changing out the brakes and all that stuff. Now I will say, brakes is one of the more expensive things you have to change on this vehicle. I believe the rotors each on the front alone is like $530 each, and the pads are like $200 as a set. So right there, I mean, you're already at like $1,200 for like a brake job set just in the front alone, if you're going to do rotors as well. But that's at 30,000 miles. Now I will say this: the 10,000 mile service that I got done, it technically was supposed to cost like $240, I believe, but because I had like the maintenance package kind of baked into my lease up to 20,000 miles, or like 4 maintenance intervals, it was free for me. But I think it would have cost me $240 at my personal dealership, which is Johnson Lexus of Durham, North Carolina. I will say, I think they're one of the more pricier dealerships, even compared to like around the country, I suppose. But there's a lot of rich douchebags where I live, so things just cost more money. But despite where you live, I think no matter where you are, Lexus dealerships will screw you over on the brakes, because obviously, like I mentioned, there's really not much you have to change with these vehicles. The more expensive thing you have to change out of these vehicles is going to be the brakes. So they just inflate the price of the brakes. So that's kind of where they get you. Will I continue to take my vehicle to the Lexus dealership? I think I will, because for the most part, it's really not that expensive for the type of car this is. For like a 6-figure car, I can stomach it. I can stomach how much this vehicle is costing me. Like one service on like a Ferrari is like what, 7-8 grand. I think in the entirety of 10 years of owning this car, it might cost 7 or 8 grand. So, I'll take it for a 6-figure vehicle. But aside from the brakes, the other things you have to consider are the differential. So the differential oil gets changed out at 60,000 miles or every 72 months, I believe. And that again continues when you're at like 144 months or 12 years down the road and like at 120,000 miles. Between 30 to 60,000 miles, you might have to consider changing out the transmission fluids, but that's really it. I mean, there's really not a whole lot going on here for many years or many months. I mean, you don't really have to worry about much. The cost of maintaining this thing to keep this thing on the road for the long term, like you can look this up on Google yourself. I mean, Lexus pretty much published the 180 month interval for the Lexus LC 500s, basically like the maintenance schedule. So you can look it up for yourself, but this is kind of like the main things I've noticed maintenance wise with this vehicle, and the brakes, of course. And the reason why I'm going to continue taking it to the Lexus dealership is because only the master technicians are allowed to even touch the LCs, I believe. So, it's just a peace of mind thing as well. So I don't mind paying the inflated premiums to take my vehicle to the dealership. But I will say this, oil, okay? Oil, they actually use conventional oil when they change out the F-Series cars for Lexus. So the RCFs, the GSFs, and these LC 500s, they actually use the conventional oil. It's not synthetic oil or anything like that. The reason why Lexus chose to use conventional oil is because they want to keep the intervals like legitimately at 5,000 miles or 6 months. If they actually did use synthetic oil, it would be like every 10,000 miles, and they didn't want you doing that. So I guess if you wanted, you can put synthetic in it yourself, but the reason why I don't care is because I'm changing out my oil so constantly, like every 6 months. I don't care if they are going to use conventional oil. And another thing to note about the brakes. So the 2018 and 2020 model years, almost everybody has complained about the brake dust and most importantly the brake noise. So a lot of people actually messaged me on my DMs on Instagram about the brakes always like squealing, and it's really loud when they come to a stop, and they kept asking me, is it normal if my car does that? Absolutely, my car does it. And honestly, every car is going to squeak. Every performance car is going to squeak when you come to a stop. Even Porsche made like this big ordeal of a video talking about how their cars are going to squeak when you come to a stop. And it's normal. It's because it's a performance vehicle. Hell, even Floyd Mayweather's Bugatti is going to squeak when it comes to a stop. It is what it is. People think it's like a trade of like a hoopty car, but every performance car is built like that. But I will say for Lexus, for 2018 and 2020, Lexus themselves admitted that the LC 500s were making more like, it's going to squeak, but it's like more than average basically. So they actually came out with like a new brake pad, I believe, for like the 2021 model years. And some people were hesitant about putting that on their vehicles because they thought it might not stop as well. And some people reported that, but I actually did drive the 2021 LC 500 convertible, and I thought it stopped just fine. It made a little bit of noise, not as much as my 2020. Something to keep in mind. So you could ask your Lexus dealership to put like the newer compound pads on your vehicle if it's really a huge concern for you. For me, I don't care. I just got used to it. It's whatever for me, but it bothers a lot of people. I understand why, and you can talk to your Lexus dealership about it if you want to get the pads changed out. Some people put like the Tom's pads on there. I'm going to put all the official Lexus shit on my car. I'm not going to modify this car. The only like extracurricular things I've done to this vehicle is PPF, tints, and ceramic coat. That's all I've done to this vehicle. Even with the ceramic coating on my wheels, it still gets caked up with dust, but that's, again, it's just the reality of owning like a performance-based vehicle. So either get used to it or whatever. I don't know what to tell you, but it is pretty much normal. Okay, moving on, let's talk about some of the costs of some of these components, right? And how you can kind of hedge yourself against thousands of dollars of repairs. A lot of people say it's a Lexus, it's never going to break down, whatever, but you should still understand the gravity of what you're working with here. And with the LC, parts do cost a lot, mainly like body components. And I'll kind of walk you through that. Okay, each door is about 10 grand a piece. Like the outside shell, the inside interior components, yeah, it's about 10 grand each for each door. And the trunk lid is about $10,000 to $13,000, that little boot. So right there, 3 pieces on this car is about $30,000. That's a phenomenal mint condition certified pre-owned GS 350 F Sport that you can get for 30 grand. I don't think that's cool. I think this is just a lot of money. Okay, steering wheel. All right, the airbag plus the steering wheel assembly, all of that is like 4 grand. I think the hood is like 5 grand. I'm not sure. I think some of the fenders aren't too bad, like $400 to $600 each or something like that. I think the headlights are like $2,000 or $3,000 each. Same goes for the tail lights. So it's quickly starting to add up, right? You're getting into like stupid money very quickly. So that's just like a taste of it, right? So parts cost a lot of money on this vehicle. So what you can do to hedge yourself against potential repairs, you know, it's a highly advanced car. All these new cars are very advanced nowadays. All the safety tech, electronics. I always recommend getting a warranty. And like I did here, I got a 4-year lease on this vehicle. So, you know, it's got, you know, new car always comes with a long warranty, of course. So that's good. You're covered there with a new vehicle. If you're going to buy used, I recommend you buying a certified pre-owned model if you can get that. And what am I going to do after this lease? I want to continue to keep this car as long as it doesn't make me poor, but I'm going to try and keep extending this warranty as long as Lexus dealerships will allow me to do. That's how I'm going to hedge myself. The maintenance, I already determined I can handle that. That's not too bad. I can fathom Lexus dealership maintenance intervals and the price associated with that, but I can't deal with any extra nonsense going wrong with this vehicle. Okay, so next, am I going to keep this car long term? The answer is yes. Okay, I did get a 4-year lease, so 3 years left on this lease. Okay, I'm going to ride it out throughout the lease, of course, absolutely, because, well, I'm pretty much covered during that period. This car has gap insurance, all that stuff. You know, God forbid some mindless 16-year-old is texting on their phone and they just rear end me or something, the car gets into an accident, it's just like worthless or something like that. Then at the end of the lease term, I'll just give the vehicle back, whatever, walk away from it, right? But on the other hand, you know, 4 years goes by or 3 more years go by, you know, I end up with the vehicle, it's in perfect condition. All right, cool. I will try to buy this vehicle out at the end of the lease and try to keep it and try to extend the warranty on it as I need to. So that's my plan. So why is that? Why do I want to keep owning this vehicle? Well, it's because, okay, let's say I got rid of this car today. I just got rid of it. What am I going to get? What am I going to replace this with? I've driven everything. I've driven all the cars that everybody likes to jack off to, and I don't particularly love those cars. They're cool cars out there, and me personally, I wouldn't be happy if I traded this vehicle in and got some miscellaneous 911 or a new C8 or some random car. Okay, like I wouldn't be happy with the AMG GT. I would not be happy with that. I've driven all these vehicles, but I would not be happy with it. I wanted to like the 911, but I don't. I like the 911, but I don't love it. Maybe a GT3, but GT3 is now skyrocketed to 200 grand, so forget that. That's never happening. So around this price range, this is it, and even beyond its price range. I've driven Rolls's, I've driven all the supercars, I've driven a Bentley. I don't care for it. I really don't. I mean, they're nice cars, but they're not $300,000 worth of nice. Nothing can really replace this vehicle for me, but I will say this. When other people ask me within this price range which vehicle that they should get, I almost never tell them to get the LC 500. Why is that? Well, it's because I know that the majority of people will never be happy with this vehicle. And it's not because this is a bad car or that I've just been wrong about it the entire time. No, the reason why is because mentally, most people cannot accept this vehicle. This car makes no sense to 99.9% of the car community, let's say. I saw a lady do a review on the LC 500 and she was just like, yeah, it's a cool car. I love how it looks. But, you know, I still have to recommend and probably would get the 911 because, you know, it's just more prestigious and it's got a lower 0 to 60 time. That's what it comes down to. Brand horism and low 0 to 60 numbers. That's really what the car community is all about. Let's be real here. I mean, nobody cares about driving feel, emotion, being connected. Nobody gives a damn about any of this stuff. I always tell people, just go get the new C8 if you can get an allocation for it and you can get it at MSRP. Okay, go get the AMGs, go get the 911s. I always tell people just get those vehicles, okay? Because mentally, they'll be happier with that. people can't fathom when I tell them that I prefer this vehicle more. It blows their brains. It doesn't register. It doesn't comprehend to them. It's such a complicated topic to explain. It's a very subjective thing, but the other thing is I'm sorry to say this, but people are just very stupid. I don't know what people want anymore. People want to drive race cars on the street, and people want to take street cars and drive them on a track. It's very bizarre to me. It's very strange, but it comes to a point where, why don't you just get a real race car? And then the opposite is true. People want to take like these race cars, like these Bugattis and these Paganis, and they just want to like tool those around on the street. But they won't take those types of cars to a track. It just makes no sense. And I'm just like, why don't half of you people just go get an aerial at them? And again, it's just crickets. It just makes no sense. I don't understand. And that's the thing. Understand who you are. Understand how you're going to be using a vehicle. And understand what makes you happy. Is it the numbers? Is it showing off in front of other people's faces? Is this what makes you happy? Just be real with yourself. If that's the case, just go get the C8. It's got the lowest 0 to 60 time. It looks amazing. It gathers everybody's attention. Just go get that. It makes you happy from all mental levels. And I have friends who own the C8s, the 911s, and all these vehicles. And they're very happy with these vehicles. You understand? Mentally, they're so satisfied, okay? But I will say this. You know who the people are that are satisfied and happy with the LC500s? It's the people who already own those types of vehicles and even crazier vehicles than that. They realize that many of these supercars and these other vehicles that chase numbers and specs, they almost never truly satisfy out of the street. That's why you see so many people switching in and out of cars so often, because they haven't found that true joy in a street car, because it's all people do. 99% of people, they just drive cars in the street. And the LC has been the most satisfactory street car I have ever experienced. There's just so much emotion here. The sound of that motor. And it's not even, that's all great, but there's another quality to this vehicle that I absolutely love. And it's the thing that everybody bitches about, but it's actually the curb weight of this vehicle. And the reason why it has such meaty brakes on it. But this car weighs like 4,400 pounds or 4,300 pounds, whatever. It's a very heavy vehicle. And the way it just kind of rolls around the road with like authority, and the way it just digs down and just is so hunkered down and planted, that feeling allows it to be satisfactory doing 35 miles an hour, the same way it's satisfactory doing 135 miles an hour. And I've done both, and both are fun. That's the magic of this vehicle. And that's why I can continue owning this car forever and just be absolutely satisfied with it. So I would like to own other vehicles, but it would have to be in conjunction with this vehicle. I would have to have other vehicles alongside of it, basically. So that's something to note there. But living with the car has been a treat, okay? Like I mentioned, doing everyday city driving like 35, 45 miles per hour is satisfactory in this vehicle because of the way Lexus tuned this car. It's just, words can't really describe it. I try to describe it in my 45-minute long review that I did on it. People say it's rambling. People say I'm rambling right now. But here's the thing. If I cut corners and I just breeze through a review, people are like, oh, he's an idiot. He didn't cover that. I can't believe he didn't talk about this. And then I ramble on like this and I give you every single detail that you asked me for, and then people just call me waffling, rambling, all this other nonsense. Make up your fucking mind on what you want to see. But everyday livability with this car, I enjoy it for city driving, but also it's very easy to drive this on regular roads because it has a 5.2 inch ground clearance on it, or 5.1 inch ground clearance on it. That's very high for a coupe like this. And especially since from the outside, it looks like some hunkered down, low down vehicle. It's actually really not. I mean, 5 inches of ground clearance, that's like as much as most midsize sedans. So I don't have to do like this whole diagonal thing when I try to go over a speed bump. I can just clear speed bumps, no problem. There's just no stress driving this car. And after I got a PPF, I can just drive it through anything. I really don't care. So that's just something to keep in mind. Oh, and someone actually asked me about the concierge system for the HVAC climate control. I do actually use that now, and it's actually brilliant. So you just set the temperature, and automatically the heated seats or the cooled seats or the heated steering wheel, that'll all turn on automatically depending on the temperature that you set the vehicle at. It's been one of the best features ever. Also, another thing, the infotainment has never bothered me at all. I actually prefer this infotainment system, and that's another thing. these mainstream reviewers, I just don't agree with any of them. That's kind of why I started reviewing cars myself, and well, here we are. I'm owning one of the cars that nobody appreciates. So that's kind of what it always has come down to. What the majority of people don't like is what I end up liking, and what I like, nobody else really likes. So there you go. Always do your own research, check these things out for yourself. But yeah, I like the infotainment, and I like the way the climate control works now, so that's cool. All the other things, exterior, yeah, it gets a ton of attention, of course. I got the infrared, so yeah, people are really drawn to this vehicle. So if you like attention, well, you might like the LC. If you want to go a little bit incognito, you could get one of the darker colors, up to you. Interior, the best interior I've ever experienced. It's another reason why I just can't sell this car, because it makes every other car's interior look like a Motel 6 bathroom. So what am I going to trade this for? There's nothing out there that would make me happier than this car. I could tool around with the idea of maybe like a V12 Ferrari. I mean, yeah, it better be amazing at that price, but it's just so much to fathom, and you have to put so much money down, and the payment's going to be like $4 or $5 grand a month. It's just unnecessary. So lastly, I'll kind of talk about the cost of this vehicle, okay? Like I mentioned, I'm leasing this car, okay? But I leased it back in May 15th of 2020, okay? That's the day I bought this vehicle. And back then, leases were around $1,100 to $1,200 a month. And that's with no money down, mind you. I did not put any money down with this vehicle on the lease. So that's the good thing about Lexus Financial. It's not like buying a Ferrari or like a Bugatti, okay? You don't have to put down 20% of the cost of the vehicle and all this other nonsense. They treat this like a ES 350 lease, basically. So I got it with zero money down. So that's great. And back then it was about $1,100 to $1,200 a month on a lease. But nowadays though, I think the leases have shot up. You're looking at around $1,300 to $1,500 a month on average, I think. Maybe even $1,600 a month. I don't know. But definitely around $1,300 to $1,500 a month on a lease. That is with 10,000 miles, around 36 months. But yeah, lease prices have gone up. For short, never put any money down on a lease. Always do that. And then always get the gap insurance for sure. So maintenance is not included. I actually had to pay like an extra $8 a month to get the free maintenance. Okay. But keep that in mind. Okay. It's a lot of money to budget for. Is that worth it? I don't know. It's just something to consider, really. I mean, even in the used car market, you can't lease it, so you have to finance it. So the finance payments are going to be up there, even with 60 or 72 months. It's going to be well over $1,000 a month. So, it's not for everyone. Can you get away with the RCF or the GSF? Those are like $45,000, $50,000 used. Yeah, you can get away with it, but it's not anything like this. It's not even remotely the same car. Some idiots like to say that it is, but it's the way it sounds, the way it feels, the way it drives. None of these things are the same with an RCF or a GSF. So something to keep in mind. This is a bespoke experience in and of itself. I don't know. I always tell people you have options like the Camaro, Mustang, Challenger, Chargers, the Miatas. Okay, those are far cheaper options. They're brand new cars. Okay, under $40,000 or $45,000. You can finance those. You can even maybe lease some of those cars. I don't know. But that's a lot more obtainable, and you get a lot of fun there. And also on the higher end, I always tell people the spec sheet horse should go down the C8 routes and the 911 routes. But also the GT500 Shelbys, the ZL1 Camaros, and the Hellcats. Those vehicles, absolutely, there's a lot of pleasure to be had in those vehicles. Also other things to consider. But again, as the ultimate street car, this continues to prevail for me. Take it for what you will. That's kind of my thoughts on the LC500. After a year, I'm going to try and own this thing for the long run. So there you are. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.